Look at you. Got the full gear on. Nice. So I'm teaching online courses every day, and my darn webcam doesn't work, and they can't figure out why not. So you
Oh,
just
that
got my
sucks.
voice, and I even wore my best Cube T-shirt because I'm all into rap. What's up, Sam? How was your workout?
Oh, we didn't have one today, but
Oh, not today.
they're going all right.
Nice.
Who knew at-home workouts could be so hard, you know?
Makes
Yeah.
you sweat that stuff. Yeah, we got a few guys I know here so far. I don't know Bradford. If I've met Bradford, I know he registered for my course. Have I met Bradford? You can text back if you want, or talk. Abby, I remember you. Castle. So time as it is, Sheldon from the CSA sent me an article to review that they're going to be posting soon. So
Cool.
What is it on?
it was on considerations for home workouts, basically how to maintain maximal muscle activation. The idea is like using gravity and drops and eccentrics and put yourself in weak positions to maximize muscle activation. It was all right, it's basic ideas, but everybody's just going into boot camps, right? So the thesis was don't just boot camp all day long, actually consider activation and maximal rate of force development, that kind of thing.
Sweet. Dave, I hear you guys had a bit of a chat a couple days ago. Joey Nemeth was telling me that a bunch of
that?
get together.
Yeah, I just sort of.
Oh, Joey, yeah.
I just sort of posted one on Twitter, and then a whole bunch of people reached out that they wanted to get on it, so we went ahead and did her.
Yeah, I heard you guys had like 30 or so people. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, no, it was pretty good. I didn't know that it was going to get that big. I was hoping to just have a couple smaller ones, and then all these people reached out, so it was yeah, it turned out all right. There was a lot of people willing to share, which was good. There was a bunch of like the CSAO guys and stuff, and Ryan McDonald was on there, and Adam Douglas, and a couple of those kind of guys.
You guys are gonna do a couple more right here.
Yeah, I'll probably reach out to the group and see if anyone's keen on doing some more. I just basically put it out there that anyone could ask questions, and then most of the questions are kind of around like what data are you tracking and what are you using and stuff. So we just made the central theme of the first one that, and everyone just sort of shared what they do. Well, not everyone, but a lot of people just shared what they do, and so I'll put you on the list if you're interested.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There's like too many Zoom chats floating around right now though to keep up with.
Oh, I hear ya. What's LifeSave though? That's what you guys are going off of, right?
It's just a different app. It's the same as Zoom, but it's just the one that our school bought.
So, I'd never heard of it. That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a cap on the amount of participants based on?
I think ours will do up to 100. I think that's the license we bought, but I haven't really tested it yet.
Yeah, I think our license, I'm just using the one at York, is 300 participants.
Yeah, because they probably use it for classes and stuff too.
I think that's what they're doing now. I don't know. Maybe they were using it before. I have no idea, but I didn't know we had it until a week ago.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't even know this existed until a week ago.
Yeah.
So.
Now you're going to be on one like every day probably.
I'm on one like 5 times a day.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh.
Did you get a lot of people reach back out to you that are going to pop on?
Yeah, quite a few. Got a couple across the pond too. From used to work at CSIO. Brennan Murphy working with Cycling Canada. He was working with Japan for a while, and he's now in Ireland working with the Academy.
Oh, good.
That's cool. Costa is going to pop into, which is sweet. I've really no idea what he's been up to these days, so that's awesome.
Good.
So yeah, ton of people. I think Lauren working with Basketball Canada.
Okay.
Gonna try and hop on. Chas is gonna drop by for a little bit. Yeah.
Sweet.
Not sure where the discussion's gonna go, but interested to see what people are doing. Like, no idea.
Yeah. Or we're all just trying to struggle our way through it and figure it out.
See, you got to be like me and prepared for the Holocaust. 3 platforms in the basement, key to a gym down the road, key to another gym down the road. That's all you need, man. I got options.
Yeah, how you keep up with all that and do your real job, you know? real cushy job you have.
Wow. 12 hours a week of serious teaching is quite challenging. You should see me now. Actually, I'm putting more hours now than I was during my regular season because I had to put everything online. My speed lab. So I'm teaching athletic therapy students speed over a video lab. How do you think that's going to go?
Sounds like a challenge.
Yeah. So I got the kit out and got the camera out and recorded and did the voiceover frame by frame. Actually, I think it's a decent little lab, but still, no one learns how to sprint by watching a video. So,
yeah.
What video stuff are you using? I know you said you were struggling with a couple stuff.
I ended up using what Alex Malone recommended. What's it called? No, it was what Dave recommended, the free cam. Dave recommended that. That's right. Yeah, that works pretty good, Dave. Like the OBS, a lot of people use OBS. I used OBS for years and it kind of worked, but it's quirky. You just have to get the settings right. And every time I went on there, I tweaked with the settings and sometimes it worked well and sometimes it didn't. Whereas that free cam that you gave me, it's just press the button, go.
Yeah.
File sizes are reasonable, resolution's reasonable. It's not the best quality. You know, it'd be nice to be able to add captions and stuff like that, but whatever, life goes on.
Yeah.
So, works pretty good.
I usually take the videos and run it through another video software after when I'm going to publish them, but
like Premiere or something. And
it's called, I'm opening right now. I forget what it's called.
Yeah. Like I've got Adobe. Cheap. I got Adobe Premiere. It's pretty high end.
Premiere.
And it's just for me to take the time to go through and put captions on everything. That triples the time almost. So
of course,
like I had in the speed lab, I think I had somewhere between 70 and 80 demo activities, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like by the time you go through all the acceleration progressions and drills and all the top speed progressions and drills.
And be good for your course,
velocity course.
Yeah. That
Well, that's the thing. It'd be a good supplement to velocity course because basically it followed most of that. There's a few things I didn't spend a lot of time on ankling or wickets.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't have wickets with me and stuff. So, yeah, and I'm at the University of Guelph because they have turf and everything else is muddy. So we're doing it on the turf, and sure enough, they kick us off. They don't want anybody on any field at the university at all. So,
how are you able to get onto that field?
Not the alumni, the back ones. The gates are open. You know, the next to the rugby field, or below the rugby field, lower than that, south end. Anyway, so there's a lot of people out there, and the security guys drove around once, and then an hour later drove around again and said, I'm sorry, guys, you got to go. And anyway, so I got to do my agility now. I got to video that. That's going to take a chunk of time. Look at Ryan McDonald there. Looking good, Ryan. How you doing, fella? Where's Jordan? Is Jordan joining us?
Yeah, it's just his computer shows a really good time to freeze, so he's just making his way.
Look at all these people.
It's Ian Warner.
Ian Warner.
Time.
Smiley guy. Sheldon, Vicky, Nardine. I don't know Nardine. Do I know Nardine? Do I know you?
You know Nardine.
Do I know Nardine? Where?
You know who she is. U of T, I believe. from New Zealand, I think.
Or something.
Well done. Yep, from New Zealand.
I don't know her, but I know her name. There she is.
Cheers.
That's
Cheers,
good.
Mary.
Oh,
Cheers.
yay! That makes me happy.
I was just there this May for about 4 weeks. It was amazing.
I was supposed to fly there next Saturday, but alas, not.
It's gonna be winter there soon anyway. So.
Yeah, that's true. But summer breaks was the best time to go home. But yeah, not happening right now.
Just gonna wait a couple minutes. There's a bunch of people that have just messaged me saying they're just having a hard time logging on. So
He takes working from the home office serious. Look at that guy.
yeah, no kidding.
Heard that on the radio this morning or yesterday. You know, if you want to be productive working from the office, get up, prepare like you're going to work. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Same.
So what you're saying, Jordan, is you're still wearing shorts?
You know what? I am actually wearing pants right now because
not wearing pants.
makeshift. Dude, like, I don't know what you can see behind me, but like other vantages are even worse. Like it's like a crawl space of a basement, but I have a 10-month-old running around upstairs. I tried that for the first week. Nothing done. So here we are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll share it then before we get started. Jordan, just to your point, one of our mental performance specialists shared with our team earlier this week, again, just in terms of the importance of our workspace and separation, because right now for most of us, there's an entire blur which adds to the stress between our social family life and also our work life. So again, for me, what I've tried to do, and we all need to find strategies that work for ourselves. But what I've tried to do is in the office, when the door is closed, I'm at work. And then when I exit the office, I'm back with family and being able to do social things. So it's critical to have that sort of mental, emotional separation, but also the physical barrier, and the physical separation also helps as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I just lock my kids up. That's what I do. Lock them up. Don't lock me up. Jeez.
Oh, God.
All right, looks like we got a good crew here. So gonna get started, pretty informal. I'm gonna moderate a little bit here, or attempt to, just to keep people like Trev and Jordan on track here. Didn't want to give them the reins for those that know them. Really, this conversation just started with Jordan and Trevor and I chatting back and forth on WhatsApp, and we usually stay connected on a daily basis, and wondering how people are doing, and then wondering how our S&C family was doing, and our friends and our colleagues, and kind of expanded to, let's see what's going on across the province. And then a lot of our colleagues extend past that. And so we just wanted to check in and see how people were doing and how they were using this time to stay connected with their athletes, or really just more selfishly for me, I'm looking for any ideas that could help within the situation that I'm in, and looking to get more information on people are handling this situation, just to make the job that I do better. So some things that we want to do just to get started is obviously, if you guys want to chime in. I'll try and cut people off if it goes a little bit longer, to get people to have a time to chat. One thing that, just looking to get things started, is you'll probably hear a lot from Jordan, Trevor, and I, but I'm just interested in people that aren't in Ontario, just not an S&C perspective, but just the greater, either outside of province or outside of Canada. I think there are some people in here. I'm not sure Murphy has joined us yet, but he's in Ireland at the moment. But if there's anyone on here that's not in Ontario right now and is outside of Ontario, kind of just the general atmosphere of where you're at and what that looks like.
I'm not outside Ontario, but I can't help myself. One of the things that I think we all need to consider, and I know no one really asked me, is that going into all of this, we weren't necessarily working with a system or a situation that was broken. And I'm kind of looking around to see who's coming on here. I know a lot of people that are out there doing a great job being transformational and in how they work with the population that they work with. And if all the way along the way, you have, consider your clients, athletes, whatever, as stakeholders, taught them how to do their thing, they should be okay away from us. In my setting, the first few days, I'm scanning to see who's on here. Maybe we're not recording this, are we?
No, we're not.
Maybe, there was a bit of an overreaction, but most of us on here that I know of, we work with responsible adults, young adults that know how to train. So how do we carry on in a graded way of making sure that we're, number one, kind of what Sheldon said, supporting them because this is a different time. Number two, servicing them. And number three, getting out of the way and allowing ourselves to do some things. We're going to be better on the back end of this as well. Because I've not seen more content in the sport performance and strength and conditioning world in my life I've seen in the last 10 days. None of it's new or different. A lot of it seems great. A lot of people are doing great things and being very selfless in what they share. But as far as I know, the human mind, the body hasn't changed the last 10 days, really, as far as what they need training wise. And we need to be okay with that and think about how we're going to be different people, practitioners, professionals, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, because we might not get this time to do something again. And realistically, a lot of people here that I know spend more time on the floor than I do, but that is still about half or 60% of what I do. And we need to be not trying to fill that time up with doing things differently from a virtual delivery standpoint, but just saying like, hey, is this good enough? And if somebody is at home and they want to do this, they're going to do it and move on.
Yeah. I mean, that's good perspective for sure. I know one or two of you just said that they just came in from China as well as came in from potentially Milan. I know Fez, you said that you were in China when this whole thing broke out. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So I was in Asia end of January, and actually so I was coaching post strength conditioning. I was coaching basketball, so I was coaching a pro team there. So we were just having decisions of like, is the league even going to run? What's going to be going on? So and it was back and forth. It was a very disorganized league, but in terms of like action plans. So going through this kind of the second time around, and like I was able to see, like, recognize trends that were happening and kind of saw where it was headed. The biggest thing right off the bat, just knowing like what Jordan's saying, was being in touch with the athletes and the plans that you have, like being able to modify it. So for like my world, it was updating like our video scouts, giving them individual work for them to work on. And that's kind of been my focus now, to stay in touch with those athletes. Yeah, that's kind of how I've been trying to do it. But it's going to be it's going to be like minimum 3 months here of a situation similar to what we're in right now, where we're going to be separated from our athletes.
Are you back now, Fez? You're back now.
Yes, yeah, I am back now. Once I saw that flights internationally were getting canceled, I made the decision to leave. It wasn't worth it.
Yeah, so one of the thoughts and ideas that Jordan and Trevor and I thought might be good is if I talk about the approach that York and I had with our S&C program, and then maybe look at some of the other universities and get you guys to talk about what you're doing, and then maybe we can work into the private sector and then some of the Olympic sector about what's going on. Definitely interested to see, how this effect has had. Obviously, the postponement of the Olympics will be a cool topic. And then Jordan potentially has some ideas about in the really cool area he works in. So some stuff that we're doing, essentially what we try to do is keep everything as status quo as possible. The one good thing that we have at York is our compliance is pretty high. We only work with 7 teams, and that includes football, with a staff of 3 full-time, and then obviously lots of interns. But one of the things that we decided to do, and it was actually a request from our athletes, is to continue with at-home Zoom sessions. So sessions are continuing as they were, like let's say a team like volleyball was in Monday, Wednesday, Friday at a certain time. That session continues with an at-home program or adapted to those that have things that they have at home, like different gym workouts. It's actually surprising what athletes have a full functioning massive gym in their basement, which is pretty wild. So we kept things status quo. My staff run those sessions in the morning. 4 times a week, we have 90 football guys on a Zoom session at home, which is pretty cool. Again, it was a request from them because of internal motivation, social engagement, trying to keep some of that mental stress and anxiety. But the reality was just trying to keep a structure because they essentially, really, a lot of them are actually admitted to be pretty scared about the situation and unknowing. Some of them are still trapped in residence or have been kicked out of residence, and they live in Africa and they can't get home. So there's been some situations where we're just trying to create some sort of structure and familiarity with being engaged with each other. The reality is we see our athletes more than anyone else on campus, up to like 6 or so, maybe even more hours a week. So them seeing us consistently has been pretty key. So that's what we've been doing. Some of the stuff that our coaches have been doing, which is pretty cool. You guys probably seen a bunch of apps that are out there to keep up the skill aspect. Our football program, I'm pretty impressed with what some of our coaches have been doing. I'm not allowed to share too much of it based on some of their feedback. But the reality is they're doing a lot of Zoom sessions for Football IQ, which I think is an awesome time for things to work on right now. So that's kind of the approach that we've taken, is to try and keep things as status quo. And the feedback so far, I mean, it's been a week, has been awesome. Who knows if that's going to trickle down, but it's been pretty good. And then on top of that, offering some educational stuff on the side in terms of nutrition or different areas that we haven't been able to access because the in-season is so busy. So that's essentially the approach that we've taken. But I am really curious to hear how other universities are taking the approach, whether, time to have some time off and they, spend time with their families, or if it's just online and do what you can. But interested to see maybe Brock or Ben's on here, I think from Mac. Might be cool to hear from you guys.
I'll let Steve speak first.
Come on, man. You go. I insist.
Oh, Steve's on here.
Yes, ma'am.
He's just a manager now anyways. Does he know what's going on at Brock right now?
I have no idea.
Steve, you have the perfect angle. We'll show off the pecs. Go ahead.
It's just because I don't have a beard to show off like you do, man. I would say right now it's been status quo. We don't use Zoom. We use Life Size. So we are using that on a regular basis. We're literally in meetings as staff with our athletes on a daily basis, to be honest. We're taking most advantage of this time right now in order to continue to program for all of our athletes through Team Builder. Everything is video based, so it's pretty easy. We've pushed everything out to the athletes. I think some of our coaches, Dave, Taylor, and Vicky are, may set up a leaderboard as to who's doing what and setting up friendly competition within the athletes. But for the most part, it's just maintaining status quo of making sure that they have programming available to them that they can continue with. I'm taking a lot of advantage of this time in using Team Builder to set up all of our reconditioning programs for every major injury that we usually come across. So that's what I'm working on right now on a regular basis, an average of 3 days per week for about 3 hours a day on just getting our full-time therapists accustomed to Team Builder and how to program on it and use it. So that's something we just started this week with them, and then we're just building out our reconditioning programs from there. So it's pretty status quo that way. We have regular meetings. I'm fortunate I get to have senior management meetings with our vice presidents and VPs. So they've even asked that we push programming out to them through Team Builder. So there's a lot of interaction that way. So a lot of buy-in and a lot of appreciation for what we can do at this time, and also with our therapists. We are logging every athlete that we're working with from a rehab standpoint, and then setting up
meetings with them. We just had one this afternoon at 12 noon with an athlete who's rehabbing from an ankle injury. So just having regular meetings with them. And
programs. I kind of made an emphasis. I don't know how safe it is, but we've told our athletes to find a spot outside, whether it's on a street and stuff. Obviously, not with anyone, but we've emphasized 3 times a week at least to do the workouts outside, just from a mental health standpoint. And then they have 3 workouts that they can do in a small space. And the biggest thing we've been working on, other than just connecting with coaches and our therapists and our athletes, is the Marauder Fitness Challenge, which we sent out and challenged all of our athletes to complete 100% of their workouts. That's 2 points per day for max points of 12 points per week. And then we have other categories like uploading a video through Team Builder, uploading a creative way to exercise or a recipe that they've had. A video call with a teammate is also worth major points to do their finishers of the day. And if they're top 5 on their leaderboard on any of the finishers, so their teammates are counting each other's reps, and we're keeping the competitive going through leaderboards from that standpoint. The workouts themselves, it's whatever they can. Athletes are filling out questionnaires on Team Builder on what program they have, and we essentially have a body weight only, bands, and some free weight stuff is the 3rd level. And then from there, just talking to them, they send us pictures of the gym, we make modifications. And I think for all the university coaches out there, make programs for your staff and send it out if you have something like Team Builder. I know our staff appreciates it, and I get emails every day from someone else that signed up, from our coaches and whatnot. And I think that's pretty important to show what you can do for the department to keep their mental health in a good point by using fitness. And other than that, this is my 4th Zoom call today. So a lot of just collaborating through video and doing what you can while you don't know what's in store in the next 3 months. If it goes long, are we going to have varsity seasons? Is the fall sport going to happen? We don't know. So all we can do is just keep working at it. For us, construction's going on. So I'm still talking to our equipment suppliers in the States, even though I don't know if they're going to be able to come and install anything. So that's been fun.
Awesome. Thanks. For the university folks out there, how are you guys balancing speed, agility, power, and strength programming with no load? What are some things that you guys have been doing?
I can talk about what we're doing here at Queens. We've kind of taken, we haven't really pushed out too much, to be honest with you. We right now, with last week, we kind of pushed people off campus pretty late. So last week was like the first full week of getting off of campus. But we just subbed in some body weight training for people as they transitioned home or wherever they were at. Nothing mandatory for anybody. We actually, coaches set up some Zoom calls, but nothing from a strength and conditioning standpoint currently to our teams. We just noticed that there was already such a high stress load with traveling back home across the country or across the world that we didn't want to add anything to that for at least a 2-week period. Plus, with everything academically shifting to online, I've just noticed through conversations this week through our interns and through our athletes that there's now an increased stress load there of how to learn while being completely online and how to write exams online and doing all that. So we just tried not to over communicate with them and over stress them with really anything. The bodyweight program we did put out was just a standard 5-day training program, but basically every day has a power pairing of some sort, whether it's a single leg exercise, a bilateral exercise, or a lateral exercise, or some upper body power pairings. And then basically Wednesday is a full just lower body power output, ground contacts, working on some jumping variations and so on. Tuesdays and Thursdays are some outdoor tempo runnings, a non-linear multi-directional tempo run, and then a linear tempo run on the other day. started that session with some just speed technique work, and one day being more of an acceleration day and one day more of like a flying sprint kind of day and so on. We've been working with the majority of our off-season teams on that anyways, so it's not a huge stretch for them. But then other sports like rowing and cross country and whatnot, we just take out a lot of that ESD work, and we're just going to take our time communicating with the sport coaches as to what the expectations are there from an ESD perspective. So we're definitely sacrificing speed, but sacrificing strength, but we're trying to make up for that through doing a little bit more plyometric work, obviously, than you would generally do throughout a regular week. At the end of the day, too, with a university athlete, I'm trying not to make it too complicated. It's got to be something fun that they don't mind doing every day. They seem to like, I'm sure everybody else got tagged in a million give 10, do 10 push-up challenges. So they just kind of like just doing shit that's hard. So I'm just finding ways to try to engage them and make it fun and not be so structured or so worried about sets and reps and so worried about time under tension or whatever it might be. So the longer this thing goes on, I guess the more specific we'll try to get. But until we get through the first week or two of exams, I'm not super concerned about adding anything more specific to their plate. So that's kind of where we're coming from.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. Jordan, you said you had a question for the group?
Yeah, Colin kind of went there, but maybe another example of someone that chose to go in that direction. And I don't necessarily want to pigeonhole what Colin said as far as do less, but maybe hear from somebody in the private sector group or group that's working with more mature athletes that may have families. I know in the population that I'm working with now, some of those guys or girls have taken advantage of the time to do a home improvement project and go for walks with the family or whatever, who has taken, or even Ryan Mack, I'll call you out if he's listening there, he's doing something on the side. But, now that the Olympics is delayed, people probably have some time. Are you just shifting to be healthy, be active, exercise instead of train? Because let's be real here, we don't actually know when anyone's season starts again. So what are we training for?
Ryan Mack, go.
Are you listening to the start?
You've been called on.
Sorry, I didn't know where I was going. Fully called on about 12 people in that little chat. So yeah, it's been an interesting 2 weeks for sure for our end. Like we were effectively right on the doorstep of our season beginning and kicking off, and really when things came down on the Friday, we were planning to be leaving to Mexico the following Wednesday for our first training camp in competition and our heat acclimation session. So the breaks came screeching to a halt for us, and not to mention for our athletes who, first of all, are really focused on the Olympics and have really sort of narrowed their life for four years into what was going to happen between July 24th and August 8th. So what we've kind of taken the approach, and Jordan kind of touched on it, is we've kind of entered this like post-season recovery mode, because a lot of our competitions have also been taken off the schedule through until September. So we've kind of given the athletes a lot of, here are some sessions that you can do. To Trevor's question initially, we're not too focused on power development or strength or speed or agility or fitness right now. It's more, how do we maintain health? How do we maintain mental well-being? Shutting our athletes fully down for the time being would not be in their mental health interest as well. So we've tried to maintain some exercises and training sessions, but the emphasis has largely been on having fun and enjoy what you're going to do. So whether that's hiking, whether that's, in your backyard, doing some home improvement projects, whether that's building a deck or redoing your patio or slinging some propane tanks around and playing with your kids, we've tried to shift the emphasis to well-being and wellness as much as possible, just because they're going through a lot on like the mental emotional side of this as well. Like our Hooper scores have kind of gone all like through the roof right now, seeing most of our athletes for the past 2 weeks, 75% of our total days have been above our flags. So a lot of athletes dealing with stress, a lot of athletes dealing with a lot of uncertainty too. We don't know when the Olympics are going to be. We don't know when they're going to start resuming
their opportunity to even earn an income, because our athletes earn money through financial means. So some of ours that have a family and earn a wage through playing sport don't have that kind of clarity either. And they're concerned about how do they, fund their family right now too. So they can't go coach, they can't go do any other kind of skill or activity or way to raise money how they normally would during a downtime as well, where they're not competing. So there's a lot going on in our space right now beyond sport performance. So we've kind of put a backseat on that and tried to focus on the person and how do we make sure they're staying healthy and in some kind of positive mental mindset as well.
So before we get too far off the track of some of the university or college stuff that's going on, maybe just want to hear a little bit from Josh Ford or Darren Turner or Alex Malone in terms of athlete attendance, compliance, tracking, and quality control. Like, are you guys also just taking a bit of a back seat and letting them kind of do what they need, or is there a little bit constant checkup, a little bit more like what Steve's doing or us at York?
I was actually just typing a response to Ryan because I was saying I really appreciate his approach. It's easy, I think, to rush to try to maintain normalcy. So, all of our, different schools, teams, and organizations were doing things different times, and you almost feel like there's this pressure that I have to stay in touch with everybody and be able to do this, and that. But the reality is this isn't a normal time. So to try to maintain that normalcy might not be the most appropriate thing. And I think, how Ryan's approaching it and how that organization is approaching it is appropriate for their athletes. And the one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is it's a good time to develop new habits. So, our student athletes always have so much pressure on them, and now they have a little bit more time. Things are a little bit different, but instead of trying to, force feed programs and that sort of thing, maybe it's giving them some autonomy over their training. One of the things that we discussed as a staff was just like, all we really care about at this point is that they're doing something, right? And they're like happy to be doing what they're doing. And, even my wife, who many of you know, was like, and she saw one of our athletes' Instagrams and she's like, why is she doing like so-and-so's program? And it was just some like random trainer on Instagram put up a thing. And I was like, she doesn't even really like to train. So the fact that she did that and posted it, I'm happy with. You know what I mean? So the fact that right now, I'm happy if they're doing something. We're not doing a whole lot in terms of accountability. What we're doing as a staff is reaching out individually to the teams that we work with and those individual athletes and just trying to connect. So I was just like sending text this morning, there hasn't been, so in opposition to kind of your demand for like Zoom sessions that you're running, Sam, we haven't had that yet. So athletes don't necessarily want that. And then as a sort of counter to, Ben, I know you guys are pushing stuff out to the staff, which is awesome. Morgan was like, I just got a team builder account. And our fitness Instagram, our fitness staff is doing live classes on Instagram, which I'm sure some of our athletes are probably doing. And I've been on a couple of them, and there was like 300 people or something on at one point. They've had a lot of impressions and a lot of success with that. So I think I just want to, recognize them and support what they're doing. But that's how we're handling it right now. Is I think the next step for us is to have more contact with our sport coaches and, see what their expectations are during this time period. And I know in a few conversations, some of them are the sport coaches are struggling too with, what do we do at this point? Some of them were reaching to like some canned like programs that they sort of purchased online and sent out to the athletes in terms of skill development and things like that.
I'll jump in there for a bit. I see Trevor's comment about street running in a pinch, and some of the concerns that we've had are athletes moving from one mode of activity to another, particularly rowing, and without them having ergs at home, some of them have turned to rowing. But again, we have to really be mindful of the load and the volume going from a different mode of activity. But also, even the athletics athletes, they were on the track as of last week, but now York for example, is completely shut down. So even those athletes going from a track to the road or even the sidewalks, heaven forbid, is going to greatly increase the amount of load and stress on the body. So we've had to have conversations with them around that. And just to the point about mature athletes, so for example, I have a spectrum of athletes, some who were going to their first Olympic Games, another who's going to his second and multiple, and another one who is going to be retiring. And unfortunately, she actually came out of retirement to make, so I worked with her through the Pan Am Games, through the Rio Olympics. She got married, had a baby, came out of retirement, and was going to go, for the Tokyo Olympics as well. But this puts a huge sort of question mark in terms of her plan. So it was a little bit of a catastrophic news for her when she heard about the COC and then the IOC announcement. So when her programming, what we've done, and for the most part, I use Training Peaks for the athletes because a lot of them are remote. So there hasn't been a change in that respect. But for her, programming is actually morphed back to something similar to when she was actually going through the training and retirement from sport. So again, until we know a date in terms of what the Olympics are going to be, that's the approach that I've had to take with one of the athletes.
I can jump in a little bit on that too. I work with some of the national team wrestlers out of Brock, and to Sheldon's point about mature athletes, I have two that one that was at the Rio Olympics and one that was just short of qualifying for Rio, and we're debating after those Olympics whether to retire or keep pushing forward for another quad. And both of them decided to continue for another quad and take a shot at 2020. Both of them came back from some really major injuries within this quad. So one had a complete shoulder reconstruction. One had a ACL full tear came back from. And so it was a tough quad on both of them, but both of them managed to win the top seed at nationals and give themselves a shot to qualify Canada for the Olympics. And their last shot at qualifying for the Olympics was supposed to be in June. So obviously that's not going on. And then with the cancellation or the postponement of the Olympics, they're not even sure if they'll get another shot to qualify for Tokyo or when that might be. So for them, who were put essentially their lives on hold, debating retirement in 2016 for four whole years, came back from two major injuries and put themselves in a spot to get that last shot at it, and then have all this happen. It was nothing short of devastating. So for them, they've been given some programming on Team Builder if they kind of feel like doing it, but similar to Ryan, the focus for them is just mental health, general health. One of them has a small daughter. One of them just moved into the new house, so luckily there's kind of distractions for them. But the uncertainty that they have around their sport and their futures just is such a weight on their shoulders that you don't want to add the extra burden of too much training stress or anything like that. So I totally echo what Ryan was saying, and there's a lot of athletes who are in tough spots right now.
Yeah, I guess an interesting segue, as Chaps just posted something I had no idea about, and then I want to get Chaps' perspective given the amount of athletes in his history that he's trained or has currently been training within the Olympic sector. But I didn't know that they were handing out huge fines for being in parks or being on fields. I mean, I know for York, like, our fields are still open in terms of they haven't locked any of the gates, even though the York facility is closed. So athletes I know have been able to get on those, and I'm out in Guelph, so like I'm sure it'll take 3 months for anyone to come out and see what we're doing. But nothing is really being enforced out here in terms of being in parks or being in fields, besides our national parks are closed. But yeah, that's a massive $1,000 fine for curb gatherings, which is probably necessary. But Chaps, if you just want to give a little bit of a layout of what's going on in your world and enlighten us with your wisdom over there.
Yeah, so I live downtown Toronto. I'm in the thick of it, and people are doing a pretty good job at being separated. But what's happening is everyone's going outside to do their workouts. Last week, I was training my skiers at a calisthenics park on the lakeshore, and then I went back 2 days later, and there was literally 100 people there, and we were the only ones there 2 days before. So the parks became the new congregation place. And yesterday, they basically said everything's closed. Um, One of my work colleagues is at High Park, and he's seeing them hand out tickets to anyone that goes in, and it's $1,000 to make sure that nobody congregates. So it's probably good to keep eyes on the big cities as to you'll get a sense of the future. Same as like Fez said, what's happened in China, because things are getting locked down. You know, each week they're locking more and more and more down. I guess I'm fortunate. I've remote coached for quite some time. Remote coach paddlers around the world. So we're just trying to give them, I wrote a big article on different ways to build your home gym. Step one, get all the equipment you can or build what you can. You may not have a lot of money, so cheap ways to do it. I'm happy to share that article. And then for my podium skiers, we had Scott Wilgers on a webinar last Friday on long-term remote coaching, because he's been doing it with Softball Canada for 4 years now. That webinar is on YouTube. I'm happy to share it if you just type in long-term remote coaching. And then he gave me the idea of building a isometric / band deadlift squat rig with some planks and 2x4s. So I've actually just finished building my first one. It cost me about $150. You can do mid-thigh pulls and squats and presses, isos at any angle with chains. And then you can add bands on to do dynamic stuff as well. It's super light. You can put it in your car. So that's how we're getting around the force aspect with my guys. You know, in the city where a lot of us are stuck in boxes in the sky, so we don't have space like backyards and stuff like that. So that's one thing. I am going to put together a post. I filmed the whole process of me building it. So I'll share that with anyone if you need a cheap option. But yeah, for my team, because even the skiers, I remote coach 6 months of the year, we're status quo as usual. So it's not really too different for me. That's more my norm than not. Your question, condo gyms are shut down just about everywhere.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that too. They've shut down all the pools and gyms in condos for sure. So I'm interested to shift some things to some of the private sector. It's an area I don't work in. So I'm interested, I know Joey Nemeth is on here. He also spent quite a bit of time in the Olympic world as an athlete, and is now in the private sector. I do a little bit of work with him at York with our combine guys. So maybe Joey, and then Ian Warner, always interested to hear what's going on in your neck of the woods and how that's kind of affected things on your end.
Hi there, guys. My name is Joey Nemeth. I own a business called Excel Performance Training. I work primarily in the Burlington Oakville area, specializing primarily in speed work, but I'm also doing strength and conditioning as well. Definitely, this has been a big hit for me because pretty much everything that I did was in-person training, and so obviously that's basically finished at this point. So for me, it's about diving headfirst into the online realm. So this morning, actually, I was talking to Dave Scott McDowell, who was informing me about a deal they have on with I think it's called True Coach. It's a online training platform that they're running like a 30-day free trial. So you have access to all their features and whatnot. So honestly, I'm just kind of taking my baby steps into the world of remote-based training. I've been like a sheets guy for a long time, just sending out workout programs to whoever need them, and primarily to the people that I normally train, basically just as supplementary workouts that they do at home or at their own gyms. So it's all. I just got off the phone with a buddy of mine who has a digital marketing business. So honestly, just trying to figure things out best as I can, get as much information as possible, and kind of go from there.
What about you, Ian? Technology's hard. I know.
Ian's going to telegraph in here for us.
I'll jump in quick on one thing.
Where is he?
So I work for Push, so conflict of interest declared. I do have a stake in it, but we are offering 60 months free software if anyone else wants to try something else as well. That option is there. We are a Canadian solution, but
months, chaps? You just said months?
2 months, 60 days.
Oh, I heard 60 months.
I'll give you 60 months.
I heard it here too.
You gave it to me before,
then
didn't
you're
you?
in my pocket, bud.
Yeah, I know. Team Builder too, I think, is offering a couple months for free and stuff like that. It's kind of cool how those platforms are now offering a variety of things. Obviously, try it out and then you fall in love with it, and then you keep paying for it, right? What about Matt and I think Joey or Joe V is on here too from the private sector, I think. What's going on in your guys' worlds?
Sorry, Sam. I clicked that link that Chris sent. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're all good.
Yeah, in Vancouver, it's a little different. I'm working for the Whitecaps Academy, and we've given our athletes programs to do at home. I've taken the approach that when things started off, we were like, we're going to be off until the end of the month. But I think everyone here is on the same boat. It's probably at least going to be another month or two. So I didn't prescribe any training or things like that. It was just conditioning around the soccer field, things that we've done, and like longer type of runs using the trails here in Vancouver. It's a difficult time. I had to tell all the players not to go into public parks and public areas and fields because they're all closed. So everything is strictly to be done running around their neighborhoods. And to be honest, I guess for me, I work with developmental athletes, right? So I think I like the point. I can't remember who said it earlier, but I wrote it down. It's a good time to develop training habits and good habits. So I think what I've tried to do is encourage them to stick to a routine and not make it overly intense, because I just don't know if we're even going to get back into our season. At this point, we compete until the middle of July, and we're not going to be traveling to America anytime soon the way things are. So I think just scaling back the intensity and some of the high intensity components at this time, and just encouraging them to go on long runs and build up their aerobic capacity, some jump volume and things like that. But I'm not sure. I've never really had to do this. I think all of us are in the same boat, but it's been good to really think critically about why you're giving programs. I think with the speed power stuff, it's good to maintain, but if we're not going to get back anytime soon and we start back in 4 or 5 months, is there value in doing that, or how much value is there in putting a lot of time into that type of programming when we can build maybe some other qualities?
Yeah, just for those that that may be a little bit too shy to share information, feel free to post some of your unique approaches in the chat that's going on currently. There's a lot of people on here that I know do a lot of really good work, and it'd be awesome to hear from you guys. If you don't want to speak about it, you can type it, or if you can't talk because Ian's house is full of a lot of people, then he can type about it. I know Costa is on here, and he's got some family that actually works within the high essential workers. I think your girlfriend's a nurse or a doctor. Sorry, your girlfriend's a doctor. But kind of what's going on in your world there, Costa? What kind of things have you kind of taken away from this situation?
Okay, can people hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Oh, okay. Awesome. Geez, so I guess I feel a little bit out right now. I'm not really working directly with any athletes, so it's been I don't know how much I have to add in terms of really practical type things for everybody here. I guess my partner is an emergency physician, so on my end, I've been kind of privy to a lot of conversations in that world and them prepping for everything that's going on. I guess for me personally, just at U of T, all my courses have gone online, so just adapting like everyone has in terms of teaching online and liaising with students and coordinating placement through the Masters of Professional Kinesiology program at U of T, S&C placements through that program, and it's mostly remote. And so, I know Alex and Nardine are on this chat, so we've been working together this year, and my work with the athletes my work with these students have been pretty uninterrupted. My role has been mostly remote as it is, so not too much of an interruption. I guess just in my world, at home, it's COVID 24/7 and getting all the updates every evening and what's happening in the hospitals. And that's, certainly from my end, I think, I wouldn't say anxiety, but I would say a heightened sense of awareness as to what's happening in the hospitals, and then hearing everybody talk about, even for myself, I came from the parking lot pushing my car and doing some stone stuff that I picked up on the trail the other day, and kind of thinking about, given what I'm hearing at the end of the evening with debriefs with my partner's colleagues, just how to stay safe while outside and interacting with different implements in the environment, whether that be a stone that you pick up or a park that you're on a pull-up bar, or a bench that you're using. So, I guess I don't feel I have very much to add. It's been great listening to you guys, but that's kind of what's up in my world.
I'm interested to hear, Costa, like, for the fact that you have someone on the front line and they feed back information to you. What is the baseline of sanitation, or if you are going to be outside in the parks, or you grab a stone and you want to bring it home, like, what is the base level of stuff that you're being guided to do to make sure that you're safe?
I think I can share, once I finish speaking, I'll share a link to everybody. There's a program, or I guess a group of Emerge physicians that put on a podcast. It's pretty well respected in the community, and they often update consistently with new information. I think what I've taken from listening to those podcasts is that there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of how the virus is transmitted. I think that it's pretty clear that it's mostly transmitted via droplets. So being close to somebody who has it and interacting with them, if you touch them and then touch your face. As far as I'm concerned, I think there's uncertainty about the aerosolization of the virus. I don't think humans naturally produce aerosols, so high risk procedures like intubations in the hospital are more at risk of producing that. So from what I understand, from what I've heard, is that if you maintain 6 feet of distance from people, there's no risk of breathing in the virus that's going to be around you. It's when you're very close to people. In terms of surfaces, there was a couple of physicians were kind of opining. No one really knows. I think that there is some evidence about SARS-CoV-1, which is another, I guess, strain, and how long it lasts on surfaces, but there's no real clear information about it lasts this long on this surface, this long on that surface. There's some data, but from what I understand, that data has not been replicated. And so I think that from what I've heard from the physicians is that everyone is just exercising the precautionary principle, just diligent hand washing, washing of, implements or things that come into the house that could have been in contact with people that might have, let's just say, are sick. I don't think anyone is advocating not touching things, but just diligent hand washing, making sure that if you're interacting in any environment and you're in the park and you're doing pull-ups and you're not just touching your face with the gloves that you use to touch that surface. I know I guess I'm putting my outdoor clothes in a sanitary spin cycle every 5 days, just because I'm trying to break habits of being outside and wiping my face. And the kettlebells that I use outside, I also bring into the house. So from everything that I've heard is just being diligent about washing those surfaces, washing your hands, and then I think that's the information that I've kind of picked up. But I'll share that link right now. It's a good resource for everybody.
Thanks, Costa. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Something that Colin just posted, like, that's a massive point. And when I read that, so Colin just posted about the reintegration, like most of us and our coaches and our athletes haven't been off any sort of physical activity for 3 months, like, let alone they've probably been doing this since they were 7 or younger, right? And I would say, and I'm really happy if someone else kind of chimes in, and I'm glad to hear, Steve, you talked about how a lot of this time you're spending actually developing more relationships with your sport coaches and some education around that. But my biggest concern would be not necessarily trying to hold the athletes back or try and create some sort of timeline for them, but holding sport coaches back sometimes from just resuming 5 days a week on court or what have you, depending on what their summer practice plan is. I know some of our coaches can get a little bit crazy in the off season. But Vicky makes a really good point about maybe looking to develop some sort of OUA guidelines for return to sport, or that, I mean, from my, obviously selfishly, like, yeah, I'd love us to kind of get together and try and band together and collaborate and integrate in some way, shape, or form on the OUA. But is there a grander scale that this could or should be coming from, or, you know, working together on that point? Because I think that's pretty important in terms of us making sure the longevity of our athletes in the upcoming seasons.
Something interesting to think about is, I know on the OUA right now, and Steve, you might even have more insight on this, is this capacity project thing that they've started talking about. I don't know if any other schools dealing with that like we are, but we've been consulted on it a little bit, but mainly it's administrations trying just to make sure that financially schools aren't doing so much preseason that other schools can't keep up, or they're not taking a vast amount of road trips where other teams can't keep up, and so on and so forth. It's not necessarily around, in my discussions, it hasn't necessarily been around student athlete readiness or performance or anything like that. But I think a lot of those decisions can easily get made by administrators without like the necessary consult with sport performance experts. So I think Vicky makes a really good point of coming up with some sort of, I mean, once again, I think the word she just used is basically like apply, not imply, but rather like, you know, kind of come up with a constructive scenario where we just talked about it today, that like we're likely going to lose all the revenue from summer camps. So therefore universities are going to be financially in a tougher spot. So therefore, if we lose that and we don't get back in July, but football training camp starts in August, but they've not done anything all summer long, like, what are football coaches going to do? And I have so much respect for our coaches, but they're going to be like, hey, it just got shortened. Training camp got shortened even more. So they basically have 4 or 5 days before their first game. It's just going to get even crazier, but the kids won't have the built up training load available to do that. So I think it can't just be like a university discussion, because obviously there are situational differences, but like the game schedule might literally need to have a look at. If we are only allowed to start doing or get them back on campus at the end of July, well, a game in the second week of or the third week of August might not be the thing that makes the most sense. So I don't know. It's just an interesting discussion point. It's something that definitely should be talked about.
If I can add to that, I've been working on a committee with Brian Finnis from Ryerson, as well as Matt Davies for the OUA in that capacity project. And so that was something I was going to present to everybody at the OUA meetings coming up in May. Yeah, essentially what Brian and I are doing are trying to put the amount of hours that an athlete should be doing in their sport, but also training volume, training load leading into preseasons, and what that looks like. There's a lot of metrics and volume that we are looking at in order to make sure we implement to make sure the athletes are trained safely throughout their preseason, and then also through the early stage of their season and throughout their entire season. So there's a lot of there's a questionnaire that's been sent out to all the administrators. We've just gotten that data back, and now we're putting all that data through the spin cycle in order to just punch out what we think are accurate numbers for each sport. I think it's important to know we're treating each sport differently too. Fall sport versus full year sports. The timing of everything throughout the summer, but that might be another discussion for another time. But just know that Brian and I are taking a acute chronic workload kind of approach to it, just taking a look at just how to make sure our athletes are reintegrated safely. So certainly something that we can work on together moving forward if this goes any longer than it needs to, which I think it will.
Yeah, I can just to give one more kind of thought on this. Colin kind of mentioned the worry of the football coach only having a couple days before the first game. Like this is such a rare scenario that I think it's forced everybody, not just us, but everybody in every single field to be open to new ideas that perhaps they weren't before, and come up with different solutions. So, I mean, we all have worked with coaches who are really good to work with and incorporate, you know, the ideas of loads and intensities and ramping up safely. And we've worked with coaches that don't and just kind of do their own thing. But, you know, maybe a situation like this kind of forces every type of coach to kind of reevaluate. And, you know, there's a pretty good understanding, you know, across the board that all of our athletes won't be playing their sports, you know, for quite a long time. So, you know, those coaches that, you know, might be more resistant to incorporating proper ramping up, perhaps now with this scenario that they're, you know, more willing to have those conversations, especially if there's, you know, guidelines that we can suggest. And I can't remember who mentioned it now, but, you know, looking at just the way OUA training camps and game schedules are planned out, maybe the people who do that at the OUA, you know, take a look, and this could be an opportunity for positive to come out and for everyone to, you know, look at what we currently have. It's really hard to make changes, but when something like this comes up, it's when you're kind of forced to change, maybe that's not a bad thing. So that just kind of crossed my mind as Colin was speaking.
Yeah, it's definitely that's a point that at the time I hadn't actually really thought forward from, but maybe Steve, it looks like you have the closest hand to some of the OUA admin, and you guys are already working on that and obviously keeping us up to date. We'll obviously chat in May, but I think that same scenario probably branches out to most people on this call in terms of getting people back into training safely and what that looks like. And Trevor just posted some anecdotal experience that he's had, but definitely seems like something that we could approach as a united front, or at least have a discussion about in your circles that you guys are working closely with. I know we're going to have a tough time because football's already talking about, you know, crazy things, crazy things. So I know Trev wanted to talk a little bit about, he has some experience for those that are working with Olympic lifters right now in terms of some practical opportunities or different ways of training for Olympic lifters. And then there are quite a few people who have to go. Some people have asked me privately if we can extend this another 10 or 15 minutes. I don't have another call till 2:30, so I'm happy to stay on. And I think there's a couple of things that don't know if this will go any further than this meeting, but it's really good to see everyone. And if you have to go, great to see you. And I'll just pass on as much information as I have, and Trevor will send out to his group. But if there's any additional type of topics we can have, I know Dave's doing a couple as well. But maybe Trev, you just want to touch a little bit about Olympic lifting, as you know, that I'm sure that area is a little bit unique.
Well, I think it applies to what some of the concerns are here, because strength and power is the biggest limiter right now. Conditioning, if we have compliance, you'll keep these conditioned. Speed, if you have compliance, shouldn't be too bad. Agility, even, they can probably find ways to move around quick and let their athleticism take over. But from strength and power perspective, I've learned a lot of lessons over time from elite lifters been injured, etc. Dragismir Siroslan told me a story about was preparing for Olympics back in the 80s, and he was injured with a back injury. He was actually hospitalized, and he was forced to lay down in bed for a period of 3 weeks, and this is about 8 weeks out from the Olympics. And he spent his entire days watching videos and visualizing the movements. And we all know the power visualization. He ended up coming back, and with only 6 weeks of prep and at the game. And so what I've challenged my athletes to do is to think every day about what the movements are, and then do some of the critical movements. There's so many weak links in all of our athletes. We all know that. There's positions that they just can't get into and maintain. And so I have a lot of my athletes working those weak links, and then I make them do 30 reps a day of overhead squats, overhead lunges to work on obvious positions, drop cleans, drop snatches, drop jerks, halting pulls at the knee and holding that for 30 seconds repeatedly, transitions from the knee to the top of the pole, super slow pulls, snatch escapes. And whether they do that in circuits all at once throughout the, very simple broomstick type activities where none of them are strong enough in some of those positions. None of them. There isn't a single person on my team that's really strong and really aware of where their body should be. So there's things that you probably identify in some of your athletes that they're all kind of weak with, and positions you can get them into and just get them to think about it every day. And what my experience is people come back and they'll actually be stronger. If they're a hard trained athlete and they're thinking and they're visualizing and maybe even move through some of the motions, they'll come back stronger. And then your only challenge is to build their physical, right? Getting their volume back. The other thing I've done is I've challenged all my athletes have weak core, weak back. So I've challenged them with, everybody has to come back doing a 2-minute plank, 1 minute side plank, back stills for 2 minutes, being able to do a halting lift hold with a dowel at their knee for 2 minutes, 6-inch leg hold for 2, Rocky sit-ups for 5 reps, things like that. And so I put the onus on them to work through that with some basic programming. So I think that we can all be comforted to know that the strength and power can still be there. If they're otherwise healthy, not injured, it'll be there. And then all we need is a patient transition or re-implant, as we're talking about, and they'll be back at it, man. These are studs, most of the people we work with. And so I don't think we have to sweat a whole ton as long as we're getting them to, be involved in the process while they're off. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else want to follow up on some of the stuff that Trev was mentioning?
Yeah, I've seen it many times. I've had people out for 2 months and come in and their first week set a PR on a snatch. It's not uncommon. It can happen. So there's ways to work through it.
Yeah, just following up with on what Trevor said. I've put together a couple of videos for some of the football guys at U of T just to go through some basic mechanics of some of their sprinting and some of their jump technique, the run technique. I know the space is limited, and I went for a run at Central Tech a couple of days ago, and then it recently just got shut down. So all the track athletes are also looking for spaces to go. So space is kind of tight right now, but if we can put together videos and even send them some stuff. I know Trevor had a bunch of great videos for the Olympic weightlifting course that are on YouTube and free to access for athletes to go through and look at some of that stuff while they're at home. They're going to be scrolling through the internet all day anyways. So just have something they just click on and watch every now and then to get some of that visualization in is definitely really helpful. And is trying to find ways that we can do some of these drills in a confined space. I just did a whole series of toe-up jumps, alternating toe-up jumps, skipping A's, skipping B's, kind of in this one space right by the school, and probably can't go back there anymore. But I know for a lot of people, they don't have, a trail to run at, or, even a straight piece of pavement that isn't covered in potholes. So the biggest feedback I've gotten is for some of the speed stuff is just what were they supposed to do with the space they have. And so sort of to tack on to one of the points we mentioned earlier, football is doing their basic speed stuff because they've had 2 or 3 months of it. Whereas basketball, who just got out of their season, they've had, half of a off-season program already. They're not doing any speed stuff as of right now. They're doing a lot of just very basic mechanics and a lot of body weight circuits. Just understanding where the teams are. And if I show them a video of me doing some of the mechanics, it's probably going to go right over their head. There's one thing to kind of watch someone do it. I'm not the best video editor, so I can't really go in and say make sure your heel's this close or your foot's this far away or whatever it is. But some of the video stuff I'm trying to work on, and so far it seems to be helping a little bit.
There is a question in terms of if anyone has any tips for powerlifters. I know there are a couple in here that do work with powerlifters specifically. Do you guys have any comments? I know Trev, you're working with them as well. Not sure if people are done hearing from Trev, but Jordan.
All my comments were going to be jokes. I was just going to rip on them.
Maybe Jordan can comment a little bit.
I'll cut off Trev just because
with his experience.
Yeah, if you don't have weights, obviously you can't train maximal strength for powerlifting, or if you can, then you're probably not a powerlifter yet. But that's cool. Powerlifters, I don't consider myself one, but I have competed in powerlifting. Just work on some things that you can. A lot of people hide behind the fact that they suck at things, a lot of things. And powerlifters, I have more experience in strongman, same thing. And they talk about how it's not necessary for their sport or directly relates to it. No one, as far as I know, in Canada is a professional powerlifter. So that's not what you are. It's something that you do in addition to what you are. Yeah, go for walks, work on mobility, body weight strength, work on chin-ups, a lot more pulling than pressing, like the things that you don't normally do. Unilateral strength. I don't know, aside from maybe the top few percent in the world, any powerlifter that wouldn't benefit from doing some extra body weight core strength, work towards being able to do like a skater squat or pistol squat, work towards being able to do multiple sets of chin-ups. If you're a lightweight lifter, high reps. If you're a heavyweight lifter, low reps, add weight. And stop hiding behind the fact that the only thing that you need to do as a human is train for maximal strength in 3 lifts. Now, when you go back in the first month, are you going to be able to hit PBs? It's very unlikely, I would say. It's less likely than what Trevor was saying. And if you do, you're probably a relative beginner, which is cool, which is fine. But some of these things that we're talking about will affect the amount of training load that you can now endure in the future because you've developed better general capacities. I think if you're a strict strength athlete, I think this is a huge opportunity, more so than for anybody, because there's a lot that you can do, because generally if you're a strict strength athlete, your other capacities are at a very low level and very simple and easy to improve.
So I'm interested to get some feedback from originally across the pond, asking a couple of people. There weren't really anyone at the beginning of the meeting, but Brendan Murphy just joined us. He's over in Ireland right now. He did used to work for CSIO with Cycling Canada, with sprint track cycling in particular, and then hopped over and worked with Japan Cycling for a bit. Interested just to get some of his feedback in terms of what's going on over in Ireland. I think you're in the northern part of Ireland, and how this has kind of affected some stuff over there, and maybe how another country is handling this situation from an SNC perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I've just jumped on, so I haven't been privy to too much of what everybody's been talking about. But I can imagine that a lot of what's going on is pretty similar to what's happening in Canada. A lot of remote programming. I know that's certainly what I'm doing with my athletes. I have a friend who works for Swim Ireland as well, and they're preparing. They were preparing for Tokyo in a couple of weeks. Obviously, they can't swim at home, so that's a challenge for him. But pretty much echoing what Jordan says, just people are starting to work on those little things that maybe they wouldn't have had otherwise the opportunity to work on given the scheduling. And that's something that I've taken a look at a little bit more with my set of players. Just for perspective, my role is head of athletic development with the Gaelic Athletic Association. And we've got 30 hurlers that I'm looking after at the minute. So some of the things we're working on is a lot more mobility type work that typically is difficult to fit into the schedule of a concurrently trained athlete. And to supplement any of the work being done in the gym, I'm a massive believer in the use of jump volume and plyometrics. For sustaining strength gains that you may have achieved in the gym, typically what I found is whenever I work in some jumps and plyos, and I'm talking maybe 200 to 300 touches per session, 3 times a week, you do typically see a nice return on that whenever you do come back into the gym after the adjustment of having weight in your back. And then also the transfer to things like track and field and track and field sports in general is massive. So those are the 2 big things that I've been implementing is a lot more mobility with the players and a lot more jumps and plyometrics.
What's the state like up there? I know we talked a little bit the other day in terms of things being shut down or being able to leave your block or anything like that. What's kind of going on up where you are?
Yeah, the rules are you can leave your home once a day. It's not policed. It's just kind of out there. If you're in one of the bigger cities, which I'm not in a big city at all, I think it'd be a bit more stringent where they have police on the street. The supermarkets are pretty hectic here. Lots of toilet roll gone missing. And yeah, so people are just getting out and doing the bare essentials here. There's certainly no social gatherings or anybody kind of flouting it too much where I am. There is incidents here and there, and but for the most part, people have been staying at home and just trying to get as much in at home as they can. My players have been each town that they're from, they play for their club, and they have their own facilities that they can use. So typically a club will have a gym and will have a pitch where they can go and run and do drills and stuff. But the Gaelic Athletic Association, which is based in Dublin, has shut everything down. So all of the pitches as of today are closed. So any of our sprint work that we're doing or their jumps and plyos will be done just wherever they can get it. A patch of grass near their street. I think it's a good time to use your imagination. So yeah, use the hill on your street or use the patch of grass outside your home. As long as you're doing good work, it'll pay off.
What are you guys using over there to stay communicated or provide your programming to your athletes, Murphy? Are you using things like Team Builder or Push or anything like that?
No, to be honest, we're not that advanced yet. The technology isn't embraced fully just here yet. And I would say as well as that, there's been a lot of the basics that have been missing. So I guess over the last few months, I started into my role in around November time. I've just been doing a lot of really, really basic stuff and putting and implementing basic structures. Just in terms of, structuring a mesocycle, what facilities that we're using, what equipment we're using. We don't even have our own facility at the minute, so that's a lot of what I've been doing. But our communication is fairly simplistic. We just have a WhatsApp group where all of management and team are within that. I post my programming through Dropbox, so all the players can access all of the documents through Dropbox. Their gym work or any loads that they've lifted is pen and paper. So they print out their programs and they return a pen and paper, as I say, pretty basic. There was no point in making anything too complex based on where the organization was at the start. We track all of our running through free GPS apps like Strava. So we have a group on Strava. You can make groups of X amount of people, and it's called clubs. So I guess things like athletics clubs, running clubs, cycling clubs can have a Strava club, and then it just breaks down what your run is. So simple way to track it, simple way to keep each other accountable. So yeah, all free technology is what we've been using. We're 3 weeks into pretty much being locked down, and it's been pretty successful so far in terms of I keep track of the submissions and the distance covered. It's the only thing that I can track. So yeah, it's been pretty successful in doing that. And as I say, it's all free technology and easy to use software.
Cool. Keeping it simple over there, it looks like.
It is simple.
It is simple.
It is simple.
Keep it simple, stupid.
It's definitely my way for sure. So just to give you guys some ideas of some things that people have sent me that we might want to continue a discussion on. One of them is like what projects people are working on professionally or personally during this time that aren't related to service delivery. So although some of us at teams and people that I talk to, you're busier than ever. Obviously, yes, this is also my 4th Zoom conversation today, and I have 3 more tonight. So this has become my life. But interested to see what people are working on outside of that, as well as any sort of reintegration plan. Maybe that's something that we could do another discussion on and really get people's idea, maybe document some stuff and help Steve in the OUA and maybe get Sheldon in the CSTA to really assist in some of those areas as well. Some intern development, like maybe a discussion on what people are doing there, either private or institutionally. I know, I mean, I definitely struggle with really trying to get something that is quality from internship with the students that we have sometimes at York. Monitoring strategies, and are they really working? So what are you actually gauging to see that whatever you're monitoring is actually telling you what you think you're being told? So yeah, lots of great ideas. Maybe challenge a couple people with a problem that everyone has asked to contribute a solution in terms of either S&C or others. So lots of really awesome ideas. I guess just thanks for joining us. Really glad to see that everyone seems pretty healthy and staying active themselves. And if anyone has any closing remarks or has one last thing they kind of want to chat about, I'm all ears. And if not, it looks like a lot of the feedback is maybe weekly, just trying to see how people are doing or just to have a quick update. Maybe we'll try that. Again, started off pretty informal of just a shop talk between the three of us. And, you know, it's a pretty small community, but can be pretty large. And it seems like a good way to stay connected. So, yeah, any final remarks from anyone or?
Yeah, so I just want to say, like, I was in Macau in Southeast Asia in January when this was blowing up. Macau was super strict, started closing down parks almost immediately. They got their numbers down to 0, all the way to the fact where they were planning to bring us back 3 weeks after sending us home. So what they were doing there works, and just if we keep following this, like it'll bring it back sooner. Good things are happening here, and it needs to get pushed a little bit more, but strictness will bring us back to our regular lives sooner. They were down to 0 cases.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. What do you got there, Matt? Be like, you gotta pull it back. Can't see it. Be like the best. Nice.
Yeah, great to see everybody. It's crazy how big but small the community is. One of the things that I'm sure it'll be on Trev because he has access to the email list, that famous email list that he has, to put it out that I would like to get on it. You know, maybe it's less people, but talk about what we've been working on aside from service delivery. Like I said before, a lot of us spend a third, half, or 2/3 or more of our time on the floor. Obviously, that's time that we're not spending on the floor now, unless you're like pacing around your living room, yelling at your kids or something. But what are we doing to make ourselves better for the future? And how are we shaping that so we're showing value to our stakeholders that it will be a help to them in the future as well, without our hands being held to the fire to occupy 8 hours a day with coaching, because we're not like, I know there are some challenges right now, but it's actually probably a simpler time. And how are we doing that, and who's done a good job, and who's gotten some good feedback from you know, someone above or below, whether it's management above or intern or staff below that you're supporting in their personal and professional development, in something that is always a challenge in our field, because what we do and professionally are typically so closely linked. Send that out, maybe have a separate call for that in the future, because that's something that really interests me.
Awesome. Anything else?
It's been, guys, nice to hear pretty faces. Some top dogs in here. I like it. If I had a camera, I'd be flexing biceps right now. You would see it and be impressed.
Yeah, what's the deal with your camera, Trev? How come we can't see you?
Oh, it's shared in permissions. I got to try a new browser. But you'll from next week you'll be able to see my flowing gray hair. Trust me.
Just have a shirt on, will you? So that's the only request I got.
Well, I even wore my Ice Cube shirt today. I was quite disappointed. Love my Ice Cube. Best rapper ever.
Oh, I don't know about that. Now we can get off topic. It's pretty good. I don't know about best ever, Trev.
My son says Travis Scott. I don't know. Ice Cube all the way.
Boo. Anything?
Not something I know much about, but have you guys seen Trev? I'm sure Chaps has the ESPN 30 for 30 West Coast rap and the new and the Oakland Raiders, like from back in the day. It is solid, even if you're not really into music. As somebody that kind of grew up 80s, early 90s, and like even in Newfoundland, people have Raiders starter jackets. There's literally not a football team in Newfoundland, but that's like a wicked 30 for 30. And I think Ice Cube is the host, so Trev, you'll that.
That's amazing. Yeah, outside S&T, Chaps, tell us what's going on. Give us something cool to talk about.
Like what? I train freestyle athletes, so I started doing house dancing as a way to teach them rhythm and style while also doing plyometrics. So
I knew something like that was coming for sure.
Lessons. Trust me, you will not run a red line heart rate more than an hour of house dancing. It's the fastest dance in existence when you do the upper musical beat session of your steps. But yeah, maybe one day we'll do a team lesson or something.
I'm putting that on the future discussions / Zoom home dance party by Chaps this afternoon.
Can you give us 10 seconds or Chaps?
No, you got to earn that, guys. I'm not a monkey. I don't just dance for you. There's two ways people get to see dance. You either come out dancing or we do a lesson.
I'm so down for a lesson. I'm down. Let's do it. Yeah. Name a time and place. I'm there. What else? Is there any cool, unique things that people have been doing that is like definitely outside the box, which I always turn to Chaps for some of that stuff for sure. Anything else?
What are you trying to say? I'm a weirdo?
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Understand. But I love every second of it though, like every second of it.
You're our weirdo, man. What how have people been doing getting some stuff in on your own? Obviously, most of us here are like, we have these awesome gyms we're in all day, every day, start your work day, end your work day, during someone else's session, whatever. People been figuring that out okay, or is it just like glorified gong show?
I was good running until all the trails closed here yesterday, so that's now interesting. I'll just run laps of the neighborhood or.
Yeah, you're allowed to run on the road, man. Like, come on.
I got a pretty crazy dog. He needs to be off leash running in the woods and running.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty.
I hear you.
It's a sad time. The trails closing was me not finding Nutella and the trails closing. That was the actual sad point for me. I was okay with everything else.
Who knew Nutella would be such a hot commodity?
Nutella, toilet paper, and booze. That's what people stock up on.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm pretty lucky. Like, I've got a pretty nice gym in my basement. You know, my husband's pretty awesome. He doesn't buy me flowers or chocolates. He buys me lifting equipment for my house. So I was pretty lucky that way. So really nothing's changed for me. And running I'm probably actually more active, I'd say, than I was before, because oftentimes I'm walking around helping the athletes, but now I get engaged in some of the Zoom sessions. So I'm probably a little bit more active than previously. So I'm a little bit happy about that.
I mean, when I saw gyms and stuff were going to be closing, I just bought a little like kettlebell set, some that I just found on Kijiji and some in store, and just been doing like Pavel Sasu and kettlebell work, trying to keep it simple.
I don't know if everybody's experienced this, but we, for our population, what day is today? Monday, all of a sudden, someone was like, here's a pocket of money. Can we get some home workout? So, we all have the same connections. So I called up like almost everybody that I knew directly. And we wanted like some bands and maybe kettlebells and a TRX. And like nowhere, no one, nothing. Like the equipment companies are killing it right now, but we were able to procure some stuff. But it was crazy. And actually, I'll give the guy a shout out. Man, what was his name? Blair something from, if Sheldon Solani probably knows him. Blair from Treadmill Factory. I'd never even talked to this guy before. We had a 12-hour turnaround with like 17 grand worth of stuff in our hands in the Ottawa Valley. Like pretty legit. But that was like the 5th company that I contacted. I was trying to stay all domestic, and that was on Monday when they announced that all essential service, all non-essential would be shut down Tuesday at midnight. And at that point, we didn't really know what was going to happen with shipping and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, like Fez was saying, like if you're trying to get some stuff right now, it's not a good time. If you are trying to get some stuff 6 months from now, Kijiji be loaded. So keep an eye out for that.
I think I'll jump in on this one too. We're actually getting reached out by the big 4 leagues for league-wide deals with Push, because we're one of the only tools that can do remote testing. I think we're a jump device and an LPT at a fraction of the cost in your pocket. So we're getting hit up like crazy because we're one of the only solutions that may be mobile and remote for long periods of time. That being said, if anyone is in that boat, reach to me direct and I'll hook you up as best as I can. Again, conflict of interest declared. I work for the company.
That's awesome. What about you, Darren? What are you doing to keep yourself active?
I've actually been playing more guitar than I think I've played in like 8 years. I think I've gone through 9 guitar strings since this started. So yeah, actually I think you can even see them. Can you see them? Yeah, they're in the background. So yeah, the things that are getting the best workout are my hands. So I have no fitness equipment at all in my house. So I basically have a floor and a desk chair and a coffee table, and that's pretty much all I got. So
You mean you didn't fill up your truck when you heard that places are closing from?
Pardon?
You didn't fill up your van or anything from your current gym that you work out of, and
I did not. No, I tried, and they said this is not emergency enough for you to have fitness equipment, so I can't go in. So I've got nothing. I have a guitar, a floor, and a coffee table. That's pretty much all I got.
Fingers blasted from the acute to chronic workload ratio of guitaring.
Oh, 100%. I have like full on carpal tunnel going on right now.
Yeah, buddy.
I can only type with one hand. Yeah. But
other people probably do from the lockdown as well.
Well, I feel bad for my upstairs neighbors because I don't know. I'm never home, so this is the one time that they've actually had their downstairs tenant stay in the apartment for any extended period of time. So they've probably never even heard me play until this last week.
That's awesome. Oh, all right. Well, I gotta go to a meeting, so I'm gonna shut this one down. But again, thanks guys. This has been pretty sweet. It is really awesome to see your guys' faces. It's been a long time since I've seen a lot of you, so really appreciate that. Let's do this again soon. Expect a message from either myself, Jordan, and Trev, and stay active and stay healthy.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam. See you around, gang.
Oh, Trevor came back. Just so you know, chaps, he got boosted, kicked out for his comment about rap. He thinks his computer
My
froze.
computer shut down exactly after you said Ice Cube wasn't any good. My computer crashed.
Yeah. Just completely.
I never said he wasn't good. I like Ice. I've seen him live twice. I don't know
what
you got on that. But, he's not the best of all time. Let's not get carried away. Travis Scott is shit. I will give you that. my humble
I'm just old school.
All right.
All right, see you again.
See you guys.